welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat. If you saw on my Twitter, I put a poll out because I thought that would be super fun if I wanted to do the full gameplay of the Battlefront 2 campaign or if I want to do an Iden Versio character analysis video. And it was overwhelmingly the campaign, of course. So I recorded that. I had everything done. I had to edit. The total runtime was 4 hours, so it was a very big recording, but I've done that in the past. So I get to about 3.5 hours, and I'm trying to get, or not even 3.5, 3:15. I was trying to get the last hour in, and the file was corrupted. So I said, okay. So I deleted the file, and then it took me 30 minutes to download it again because it's such a big file. And the file was not supported at all. There was something in it that the system flagged that made it not usable. I don't know how or why that happened, but long story short, I have to re-record the last hour of Battlefront 2 campaign, which, as you might know, is the Battle of Jakku, one of the, greatest battles ever. But quite honestly, I don't really have the time to re-record an hour video and then completely edit my gameplay again. So I'm really sorry, guys, but this is just going to be a character analysis and talking about Iden Versio, which is super exciting. So just wanted to say that at the beginning. I know some of you were expecting the campaign, and I'm really, really sorry to disappoint you guys. Hopefully I'll be able to upload it at a later date. I'm definitely not deleting the files that I already recorded. But for today's video, we are going to just be talking about Iden Versio. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Iden Versio basically served in the Empire, and she was a TIE fighter pilot and part of the Starfighter Corps. She was a commander of Inferno Squad, a special forces commando unit, and which was actually assembled by her father, which I think is really, really interesting, which we'll go into in a second. She fought with Gideon Hask, Del Meeko, and Cien Marana. And Cien was basically why we don't see her in the Battlefront 2 campaign is because she does die when they infiltrate the Dreamers, yes. And which is very sad, but basically Hask and Del survive, and it's just a squad, which is very sad. But I have not read the books, by the way, for the actual Inferno Squad book, and I know there's a couple comics with them in it, with bounty hunters and everything. So legitimately, I didn't actually know that they had a fourth member in the Inferno Squad, but or Inferno group, whatever. But I find that really interesting, and I didn't know that she had died. So, of course, they did participate in the Battle of Endor, and they actually did see the Death Star blow up. And then they also did a couple of, reconnaissance missions. Now, with Iden, her story is so integral to the rebellion, but also the Empire. And for the Empire, why she is so important is because the seeds of doubt get planted in her very, I would say not too late, but a bit early on, because she sees that Project Cinder basically is attacking Vardos, which is her home planet. And when she sees that, she doesn't understand because Vardos, of course, is a pro-Empire planet. It is in the core worlds, and it was heavily, heavily involved in a lot of Imperial mines and a lot of just the military academies that were there. That was very much where it was. It's kind of like how I said it was kind of a Coruscant, but with water, and not really the lower levels. So I've always found that interesting. And she saw what they were doing to Vardos, even though the planet was pro-Empire, and it was one of Palpatine's contingency plans, and she didn't understand of, these were her people. It was her home. And as for many people in a government, they don't really kind of see it until it starts to affect them, till they start to have problems. And Iden has that problem, and she finally breaks away. Haas tries to stop her, but she and Del escape and go to the rebellion. Her story is very, very reminiscent of Finn's story. Now, of course, her story comes before Finn's, but Finn, he had such a unique story because we finally got to see a stormtrooper kind of behind the mask. And even with Phasma as well, I feel like that was really interesting to see so much emotion with a First Order stormtrooper captain. But specifically for Finn, for him to, you could see his emotion when his friend dies and the classic blood across the stormtrooper helmet. But also when in the novelization, and also this was a deleted scene, that he meets a woman that is hiding from the First Order, and he's supposed to kill her, of course, and she is scared, of course, and he decides not to shoot her. And even in the movie, he looks at all the different people and he decides not to shoot, and he puts his weapon down and does not partake, and those are the seeds planted. Now, granted, Finn didn't have a connection with any of those people like Iden did with Vardos, but Iden was she was a commander. She was really, really high up in the ranks. Finn was a stormtrooper. I don't know if it would have taken that much, and also I think it helps with the force sensitivity for him. That still is kind of not confirmed. But that is something I also picked up too, that it was heavily reminiscent of Finn's character and his character arc in the sequels. When they do get to the rebellion, it is kind of very fast, especially in the campaign, to where they kind of accept her into the rebellion, which is kind of crazy. I find that very, not unbelievable, but I think the rebels were kind of taking whoever they could. So when they show up, of course, they get recruited by Lando, which I think is amazing. We don't ever see enough of him. And then, of course, we get to meet Shriv, which is a Druidos. I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce it, but he's amazing. I love Shriv, and he's funny and is kind of like the new father figure to Iden. And I love him, and he's amazing. And I think that Iden made so many friends in the rebellion too, which I think is, one of the cool things that she did. Iden and Del got married, which I think is absolutely amazing and beautiful, and I love them so, so much. Iden and Del, I do want to read mainly the book so I can see what their relationship was, because I also have heard stuff where like Hask and Iden were like a big thing because they grew up in the same academy. They grew up in the Imperial Coruscant Academy, and the Imperial Academy on Coruscant, and the Future Imperial Leaders Military Preparatory School on Vardos. And they had so much of a connection. I think they met Del afterwards. So it'd be interesting to see how Hask would react to Iden and Del getting married. But they are super cute. They kissed on the Battle of Jakku when it was quiet. Oh my gosh, it's just such a beautiful scene. They had a daughter named Zay, and which was basically 30 years after the Battle of Jakku, which, oh, wait a second, that's when the First Order starts kind of getting their people together and starting to actually cause havoc. So Del unfortunately goes missing and is captured by the First Order. And Hask kills Dell, which is one of the hardest scenes to ever go through. Iden has been through so much. She had to watch her father sacrifice himself and die with his ship. She had to see her squad mate die. She had to see Hask basically betray them and Dell shoot Hask. Then she lost many of the rebellion fighters that were with her. Then she loses Dell, and then she doesn't get to see her daughter live out of war. Like that, man, like I love Iden, but she has been through a lot, and it's very, very sad to see that. Now, of course, Hask also tries to attempt to kill Zay when they're on the First Order Dreadnought, but Iden actually kills Hask as well, which it's got to just be super hard for her. One of the main things that we don't get to see as much in the campaign, in the Resurrection, which is the First Order section of it, so 30 years after, is the emotion. And the characters don't have time to really show that emotion, but I already know that Iden felt so much pain when killing Hask, mainly for revenge because Hask killed Dell, but also because he was, you know, part of her life and part of that story that she wanted to continue on with her daughter. And that was one of the, man, I cried. That was one of the saddest scenes as well. And then, of course, Hask ends up killing Iden, and shoots her fatally. And then Zay is the new, new legacy of Iden Versio. And, oh, it's just so depressing and really sad. But Zay and Shriv are, together, and Shriv kind of takes on that fatherly role, which I think is amazing. And they use that and Zay is part of the fight of Poe Dameron when taking out the Fumimatrix during the evacuation to Dakar. So literally, like, right at the beginning of The Last Jedi. So Iden Versio has been through a lot, but I think it mainly has to do with her early life, and this is why I think she is so important to the story of Star Wars and important why she even exists. So Iden, of course, was born in a core world on the planet Vardos during the reign of the Empire. So she was already implemented to the Empire. Of course, her father was Admiral Versio, and her mother was actually a artist at the Collation of Progress that actually contributed to the design of propaganda, which I think is really cool and a lot of people actually don't know. So Iden's getting empire, right? It's not like her family is going to be, like, oh, let's go rebels. They're definitely pro-empire. And when you grow up in that type of space, of course, you're going to pursue to fight in, the empire and fight for the empire. So she, of course, becomes a soldier, goes to the Imperial Leader's military preparatory school on Vardos, and gets taught by Glem, who they actually save a couple years later in Vardos. And she actually goes to the Imperial Academy on Coruscant, which is, if you don't know, is one of the highest ranking Imperial Academies in the galaxy. If you get in there, you're big money. That's where you make so many different connections. I'm currently reading Thrawn, if you can't tell. And when Thrawn and Ellie do go to the Imperial Academy, there are so many different connections and so many different people and so many people that can basically make you disappear in a night. So thankfully, though, she excelled. I guess not thankfully for the rebels, but for herself, she was at the top of her class and excelled with honors, which was great. But it also, did she have really a choice? I feel like that's what she was raised to do, and that's what she grew up to do. And even when changing to the rebels and the resistance, she still fought for them. She was still very much a military leader and commander. And I think that's really sad about, for one, just war in general, but two, her life and the products of war, which, guys, every video I have to, basically is Hux. So It's very reminiscent of him. It's reminiscent of Galen Urso, technically, because she did fight, and he was pro-Empire at a time, but then he went away. But then technically, she still was within the war. So if your family contributes to the war, they're going to be in the war. Poe Dameron, his parents, Shara Bay, and Kes Dameron, were very, very heavily, involved in especially the Battle of Endor, and were great friends with Leia. And Poe was raised in that environment. So, of course, he would want to fly X Wings and go to fight now the First Order, which his parents tried to stop. So, yeah, it's always really interesting to see the children, even if it's not the main characters, which is in Iden's case, of course, because we're focusing on Iden, but her father being an admiral has so much to do of her living in the legacy of her father, of the Empire, and what she brings to that. And that's why Star Wars is great, and that's why Star Wars tells these type of stories that really does reflect our world, or even being a product of war and living in war. No matter if you fight for the good or evil, right, which is at the core of it. George, Lucas said it's the fight between good and evil. But when you really get down to it, which he even knew and said in multiple comments, most of the bad guys think they're doing good, and most of the good guys, of course, think they're doing good, and no one thinks they're doing wrong, which is why we have these wars, which is why we have these vicious cycles of constantly fighting. Now, I'm not saying the Empire was good. No, they were terrible. They were definitely the bad guys, and that's what George is trying to tell us. There's definitely good and evil, and you can tell that for yourself. But a lot of times when you're in those situations, you can't tell what you're doing is good or what you're doing is evil. And Del even makes a point to Iden saying, we could have done great things in the Empire. And then Iden goes, but is that what you really wanted? Is that truly what you think would be changing people's lives for the better? And of course, Del says no. So for me, that's really, really important. And for her, she was assigned to the Death Star as a senior lieutenant, which is huge. And she was actually present for the destruction of Jeddah City, which was in Rogue One, which I think is kind of crazy. And yeah, so she had a hand in killing Saw Gerrera. Now, granted, okay, not everyone on the Death Star was, kind of in fault of killing Alderaan or whatever, but that is quite interesting. So she was present for the Battle of Scarif, and she actually was in that facility that the rebels infiltrated, and of course that just leads into A New Hope, and you all know about that. But Iden was there for that, and I think that's very cool. I've said that multiple times, but Iden's a cool character. I don't care what anyone says. She really does. It's really refreshing to see someone evil and and think that they're doing the right thing, but not in the way of, oh, well, okay, Kylo Ren, I'm sorry, I'm going to call out my boy. But for him, he's like, oh, I know I'm doing, bad stuff or whatever, but I think it's good, but also, I'm trying to just get revenge for the people that hurt me. Iden's motivations were legitimate. She wanted to fight for the Empire because she believed that they were doing something good. And the rebels that she was killing were the bad people. And then once she realized, she understood this, I don't want to be a part of this. And that is such a refreshing character. And as I said, I do hope that Finn, yes, he's developed. I'm not saying he didn't get any development, but I do wish I could have seen a bit more from Finn in that presence that Iden has. So, just overall, she's an amazing character. She had so much of a connection with Hask and Miko. And of course, I don't know her connection with Cian a lot, but I can pretty much tell that it's pretty real. So, yeah. A couple of fun things that were in the comics is that they actually were part of the efforts to basically take down Crimson Dawn, and you know how I love Solo. And the Emperor actually ordered Inferno Squad to root out Crimson Dawn agents they could find with the Imperial hierarchy. Working together, Iden Hask opened fire on two Imperials whose loyalties were suspect. So that was interesting. The Empire was working with Crimson Dawn, but there were a lot of the Empire was so hardly rooted. But then Iden would see that and go, no, the Emperor, yes, he doesn't want to work with criminals, lowly criminals. The Empire is trying to combat that when in reality, probably not. That was basically probably Palpatine combating Maul in some way and doing something with that. But yeah, she was a part of a lot of battles. Battle of Endor, Scarif, Battle of Fondor. And she also saved Naboo, which a lot of people miss as well. And I think that was great. And I love how Leia just accepted them into the family. But for Iden, I think she needed that. I think she needed the rebels, and she had never really had that before. It'd be interesting to get more of Iden after the war and her thoughts on the New Republic, on if she felt like they were just doing the same things that the Empire was doing, or if they were doing a couple things differently, because a lot of the stuff we're seeing from the New Republic is very interesting. But yeah, Iden rescued Han Solo. They were at the Battle of Jakku. I mean, she had a full life, and she did try to start a new life and have a daughter and really try to turn things around. But in the end, they come back to get you. So, yeah. Oh, this is a great quote. So this is Zay talking to Shriv, where Zay says, actually Shriv says, hope you two are ready because we gotta move. And then Zay says, it's just me, Shriv, she's gone. And then Shriv goes, oh. Then Zay goes, it's okay, she made a count. And then Shriv goes, she always did. And that was Shriv being informed by Zay about Iden's death. When playing that in the campaign, like, I almost broke down. Like, that, her death was really hard to watch, especially with her killing Hask and Hask basically killing her. So the Inferno Squad being completely wiped out. I mean, that already makes me so depressed. But the fact that she went out like that is just so depressing. It is so sad. I do want to give out a shout out to Jana Gavinkar, who actually did the voice for Iden Versio, and that was really cool. She read the audiobook adaptation for Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad, which featured her, so she actually got to read before the game came out, which is really cool. But she does an amazing job with the voice acting, and you can really feel the emotion that she gives into Iden Versio. I do hope that Star Wars calls her back. A lot of people are actually asking for her to be in Andor Season 2, which I don't know if that will happen, to be honest. I think she might get a name drop, but I don't know if it's going to happen. There's a lot of people are hoping that are going to drop in Andor Season 2. Granted, okay, remember, Andor was supposed to have like 5 seasons because it was going to be each season was going to be 1 year, and it's 5 years before Rogue One. So they were going to do that. Quite honestly, Disney, I think you just should. because Andor is so good. And I mean, who knows? They might ruin it season 2. I didn't say that, but I'm just saying. Um, but it'd be interesting to see Iden, or at least have her mentioned, because she is so prominent there. And also did mention that she did work with the ISB agents. So it would be interesting to see her interact with other people, or just even have a mention of Inferno Squad. But who knows? It might happen. It might not. But I would love if Disney called her up and kind of had her in there, because the voice actress literally does look like Iden, and it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Iden? Because I only found out about her when I started playing the Battlefront 2 campaign, and I knew she existed before that. Um, but she's amazing. I love her. She's definitely one of my top characters, and I don't know. I kind of want the helmet, to be honest. The Inferno Squad helmet. I think that might be my next purchase. It's just too cool not to get. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on Iden Versio. Have you played the campaign? Hopefully I'll be able to post it soon if you haven't, so you can at least see it. But I would totally recommend playing it. But hope you guys enjoyed. I know this was a shorter video, but I will see you in the next one.